Well, when you push the live button, you go live. Hey friends, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Robert Imbrielli here. We have a great interview planned. I have a really special guest in studio today. I really think you're going to enjoy her. She's a former Madison Avenue copywriter. Now, first thing that comes to mind when you're an entrepreneur and you think Madison Avenue, you go, there's a serious disconnect there. What is she going to bring to the table that is going to be of value to us as entrepreneurs? I got to tell you, she brings a lot to the table. But today specifically, we're going to be talking about branding. And, that's the question that comes up a lot. People think, oh, what's my brand? I don't know what my brand is. I have to have a brand, right? And typically what people do is they decide, well, maybe I should start with a logo. And they'll go on Fiverr.com or they'll hire a graphic artist or 99 designs, and that's the first place they start. They look for that idea that they create a logo, and then they decide, well, I need a business card. They start to create a business card, and maybe they need some letterhead. Oh, and here's the big one. You need a brochure, right? How many times have we heard that? We need a brochure. Well, there's an element of that that's true, that you need some of those items, but not necessarily up front. And today we're going to have a really great conversation with someone who I consider to be an absolute genius. And I don't use the word lightly because she absolutely is a genius when it comes to this sort of thing. So without further ado, I want to bring her on, Lisa Rothstein. Welcome to the presentation today.
Hi, thanks, Robert. Thanks for having me.
Genius, does it fit?
I'll take it. I'll take it.
So you and I were having a great conversation this morning. Mm-hmm. Actually, I was having breakfast this morning, and we were texting back and forth on Facebook. Gotta love social media, and we're having this great conversation about branding and some of the things. Like, for me as an entrepreneur, when I hear the word branding, I go, "Ooh, don't talk to me about that. I don't want to know anything about it." But you bring a new spin to it, and I wanted you here today because what you bring to the idea, the concept of branding, I consider to be brilliant. Mm-hmm. And I want to share some of that, So let's begin right at the top. Because I know once you get started on this, I'm going to have to pull you back a little bit. Because this is a topic that's near and dear to your heart. Because as a former Madison Avenue copywriter, wait till we get our hands on you.
Yeah, wait till we get our hands on you. Everyone sing. That was my big claim to fame. But yeah, the thing about branding is that it's everyone hears it, everyone uses the term, but nobody really knows what it means, and it actually means a lot of different things. So that's part of the problem. When you talk about brochures and letterheads and things like that, unfortunately, that's where a lot of people want to start, and that's really like the end result of what I consider to be what a brand is really about. So I want to talk more about the essence, and I know that a lot of the people who are watching this are entrepreneurs or in small businesses. So we're not necessarily talking about the big Coca-Cola style brands, and yet at the same time we are, because there's a certain crossover, and that's when you said before, well, what does that have to do with my business? It doesn't, and it does. So I'd like to talk about like how it does cross over, how branding, how the big brands' values can be something that you can use
because
in
I think
business.
That's the big thing. When you hear Madison Avenue, the first thing you think is, well, that's not for me. I think of Apple, I think of Pepsi, I think of Coca-Cola, new Coke versus old Coke. This stuff we were taught in high school, college marketing classes, and we go, well, that doesn't apply to us. We're down here, we're coaches, we're entrepreneurs, we're business owners and that sort of thing. It's just a different world, but it's not really, because you could take a lot of those lessons and apply them.
Well, actually, I don't know, if some folks who are watching this might have been at Traffic and Conversion Summit, the recent one, and Gary Vaynerchuk was speaking. And he was in front of a room full of people who do nothing but internet marketing and online stuff and analytics of conversions and things like that. And he was talking to them about brands and about how your brand is your wealth, is really the kind of long-term wealth of your business. And it's really, I get so angry because people are either on one end or the other. I mean, you've got people like Dan Kennedy calling what I used to do in the advertising business, he calls it big dumb advertising, and that it really doesn't matter and it doesn't work. And then you have people on the other end who do nothing but the sort of metrics and the internet marketing style kind of headlines that all look and sound the same, and the big long sales pages and the video sales letters that all sound the same and that follow a format. And I've done both of these. I've worked on both ends of the spectrum, and I find, and I think most of my clients agree, that there's pieces that you can take from both of them, and it's going to sound kind of like a cop-out, but it really isn't. No, I agree that the traditional advertising model doesn't work at all for small business owners. It may not even work for big business, except for the fact that they have a lot of different initiatives going on. So their big Super Bowl commercial is not going to sell that car, but it gives a lot of awareness, for example, where that's not tactical, that's not direct marketing.
Well, direct marketing is results-based, right? So where Dan Kennedy comes from, and you know this, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, it's like, I spend $1, I got to get $1.50, $1.25, $2 back on that ad.
Right.
Where the big dumb advertising, they
well,
don't
that's
have to
true.
do that.
I worked
It's
for
a different
25
thing.
years in a company where I, won awards and people told me how great it was. And really, first of all, back then and even now, you really couldn't tell. Not only could you not necessarily attribute results to anything that we did, but you also had a really long time before you could see. It was like turning a battleship, before you could see, well, okay, we started running this campaign in January, and now in June, we've sold this many more packages of underwear at Walmart, so we have to extrapolate and think that it's because of this ad campaign, because we didn't do anything else different. That's the only way that they could see that. So there's no accountability in the advertising business, in the traditional advertising business, which is what the Dan Kennedys of the world decry. But at the same time, there's really no personality and no relationship in the other end of the business, where it's all about, I push these buttons, I spend this much money, I get this much money back, but then I have to do it over and over again because my customers don't really know who I am, don't know what I stand for. They've basically they've just been in the right place at the right time to hear a message that makes them have an emotional response where they spend their money. But then if I contact them again, do they remember me? Do they care about me? Do they know who I am? Do they want to buy from me again because they feel like they're part of my tribe or part of my family? That's what branding comes in. And so what I want to talk about, though, is the misinterpretation of what branding actually means, because it isn't.
Yeah, let's start there, because that we're getting into this and we're throwing the word branding out there, and I just wonder how many people are listening and going, okay, what's branding? Can Lisa fill me in on that?
Well, it's very confusing because it's hard to see how this applies to the entrepreneur, the small business owner. To me, here's what a brand is not. A brand is not just, it's part of it. It's not your logo. It's not even the name of your company. It's not the colors and the fonts and all that kind of stuff that people traditionally associate with branding. That would be part of your visual brand. To me, all those things are symbols and signs, like semiotics, if you want a better term for that, of what you actually stand for. And unless you stand for something and you show up standing for something, all that other stuff is kind of meaningless. It's a little bit like, if you saw a flag of a country, unless you knew what the country was, those stars and stripes or that hammer and sickle don't mean anything. They're just a bunch of symbols that don't mean anything. So now when you see the flag of a country, it calls up all of these different ideas and values and principles and history and all these kinds of music and all these kinds of things and experience. And I think a lot of people think I'll get a logo and I'm going to have that. And the logo is like the flag of your business. But if your business doesn't stand for anything, that logo has no meaning. The other thing is that you have a lot of people who use logos and things like that, like lawyers. Like if I drew a picture of a I gave it away, but if I drew a picture of scales, you'd know that this was a lawyer's company. Right. If I drew a picture with a circle with a kind of a cross in the middle, you'd know it had something to do with healthcare, probably. So that's really more of kind of like a symbol or a sign. It doesn't really, okay, fine, it's a healthcare business, it's a law office, a law firm, but what kind of law firm? What kind of healthcare? How do you do it differently? So a brand is really how you show up in the marketplace and what you stand for in the marketplace and how you make people feel about you, how they think about you and how they feel about you. It's not necessarily how you look, although how you look is part of it.
So you're starting before you come to the graphic designer and decide, hey, I want to create a logo, and you're starting way before that. And I like this conversation a lot, because I think a lot of people like I said, they get hung up on that sort of thing, and I think that's where I've got to start. What logo represents me? When you have to really decide, what do you want to stand for?
Well, listen, you have to start somewhere, and if you're going to have a website and stuff like that, you can always go to 99 Designs or Fiverr or even do it yourself on Canva and create something that you think represents what you'd like to be known for. Like you have to sit down, but first you have to sit down and say, okay, what do I want my business to be about? What do I want to stand for? And it's especially important if you're a coach or a consultant these days, because everybody these days is calling themselves a coach or a consultant. And no, I mean,
true.
it seems like it's almost like a zombie movie. It's like I bite you and you become a life coach. You know, and it's like, and there are a bunch of coaches teaching other people to be coaches, teaching other people to be coaches, and it really is kind of like, you know, I'm infected with the coach bite.
That's
you know,
right.
like the Walking Dead. But so how do you stand out? So a brand is one of the ways that you stand out. So a brand in that respect is really kind of like, okay, out of all the other people doing what I do, how do I want to show up in front of my clients? And so that's not just what your website looks like and stuff. That's also, what do you post about in social media? What's your point of view when you do those kinds of things? What's your voice? Are you funny? Are you serious? Do you come from a place of being an authority, or kind of more of like a best friend? So this kind of also affects the way you write your copy, which is kind of very close to my heart too. When you write your emails and things like that, are you coming from an expert place, or are you coming from a I'm down there in the trenches with you place, you know, kind of being your best friend? So all of that stuff in aggregate over time is really where you kind of create your brand. That's where people learn what you stand for. That's where people, when they then see your logo, say, oh, I know who that person is. That person is the one that I know as
yeah, it becomes
this.
associated with the logo, but the logo is not there first, because like you said, it's like a flag. It doesn't have any meaning until you put the meaning behind it.
Right.
That's a good analogy, by the way.
Yeah,
I like
no,
that.
I've never heard anybody else talk about it that way. But and the thing is,
that's why you're the genius.
Well,
That's why you're here today.
the thing is that the flag does come to mean something. That's the other thing I wanted to say is that your brand is a living thing. It's an organic living thing that grows and changes over time. There are certain things that are going to probably remain constant, like your core values are going to remain constant, but other things are going to change because you're evolving, but also you're in the mind of your consumer, or the mind of your prospect, it's going to change because they're going to see more of these pieces of content, more places where you're showing up. So if you're showing up on Facebook Live, for example, you're going to be talking about specific topics. You're going to be engaging with your viewers in a certain kind of a way. And the more they see of you, the more they're going to get to know you, and the more they're going to associate that with the brand that is Robert, or the brand that is Lisa, or the brand that is the name of your company. So then when they come to your website and see you know, the colors you've chosen and the typeface you've chosen and all those kinds of things, those things now are in a context. They're not out of context.
Right.
I think a lot of people just want to skip right to the part where you've got, people come to me all the time.
There's a lot of fun in creating a logo, right? There's a
Yeah.
lot of fun in choosing the color. I have people that I've worked with that are like, you know, they futz over the color of the type on their WordPress
I
website.
totally get it. I do it too. But
they start there.
It
That's
is fun,
not
but
where you start.
It's, you know what, you can start there, but just don't spend a lot of time on it, because that's not who you are, at least not yet. You know, it doesn't, whatever you put there is going to come to stand for whatever. I mean, I know a lot of designers are going to disagree with me about that, because they come from a design angle, and they're very good at translating the values that you say you want to have into a visual kind of a language. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, but without the values and without the come from, there's nothing for either a writer or a designer to translate for you. You know, unless you're just going to be a lawyer and have scales on your homepage, which doesn't really tell anybody anything except that you're not a dentist.
But you know, you have those people who sell those websites to those groups, the chiropractors, the lawyers, the dentists, and that's the basic branding that they have across
Look, it's
there.
better than nothing.
They got to start somewhere,
It's
right?
better than nothing. If I have a barbershop and I put a pole outside my door, I'm dating myself, but I even put a picture of a you know, the barber pole. I know I must sound like an old codger from like the turn of the last century. But the point is, there are certain symbols that at least denote the kind of business that you're in, that look professional. It's better than nothing. At least it separates you out from people doing something different. But there comes a point where you have to do it your own special way, and you may not even know what that is for a while. So what I like to talk my clients about is to basically say, you know, find the gap between, like, why did you even go into the business that you went into? I mean, okay, you did it to make money, you did it because you're good at your skill, but is there anything about the way other people do it that either makes you mad, or that you think ought to be done better, or what are you trying to solve with what you're doing? And so if you have like a lot of people do coaching, but it's become really hands off, and I want to be somebody who gives great customer service and really connects with all my clients, and I'm not going to farm them out to to kind of like sub coaches of mine, for example. It's going to be really high touch. That could be something that becomes part of your brand. So how you interact with your clients and the way you do it is going to be different than somebody who wants to be seen as this head of this big empire, and they're really kind of far away from like the guru on top of the mountain that you can't really get to talk to, but they've got this very sort of expert positioning. That's a little bit different. So, I mean, the feeling that people get from what you say and what you do, look, obviously there's the big brands that do this. That famous comparison is like, when the Apple had the really famous ad campaign with the Mac guy and the PC guy. I love that.
Do you remember those? Those were so much fun.
Those were really fun. But the idea was, I mean, look, they're both computers, and they both, help you do pretty much all the same kinds of things, but the attitude of that person. And so that's what I love about using that as an example, is that your brand has a personality, and those two guys had a personality. Obviously, since it was Apple's ad, they made the PC guy kind of this.
They made him a little doofy, right?
What I loved about it is that they didn't make him stupid, and they didn't make him bad. They made him well-meaning, but just clueless about what people really want in their computers. Yep. And so I thought that was just genius. But if you don't take that ad campaign, you just talk about the differences between the two brands. Before take that ad campaign out of the equation, we have one whose values is really all about being an individual and being a creative and being kind of a rule breaker. And simple, and the other one that's really more about, when you're thinking about them in a positive light, technology and power, and they were the ones who were associated with the IBMs of the world, right, and stuff like that. It's a big business, so they have different kinds of values. And the funny thing is, we were talking about this before too. I mean, Apple has had to kind of somehow remain true to its values of being kind of the underdog and the maverick, and while having grown to be like the biggest company.
It's the worldwide biggest
ever,
company, isn't it?
Yeah,
absolutely.
So
yeah.
I mean, how did they not end up becoming like turning into the Darth Vader of their
yes,
fantasy?
that evil company, right?
Yeah. So I mean, it's really kind of interesting how they've managed to continue to show up in the world.
But they're an anomaly, though, aren't they?
They are, and yet they've been very, very intentional about keeping true to the values of the individual, to the values of ease of use, to the values of self-expression, and people being able to kind of figure stuff out for themselves. That's why their stuff is so intuitive. To design and beautiful packaging and all that stuff. I know that since Steve Jobs passed away, a lot of people say that the company's kind of lost its bearings a little bit in terms of their brand. But I find it's really amazing how well they've been able to maintain that image, despite the fact that they've grown to be such a huge behemoth, really, in the business world. So what I want to ask, your viewers to think about is like, what's super, super important to you? Like, what do you stand for? There's a book by Simon Sinek who talks about this a little bit called, I think it's called The Power of Why. Don't quote me on this. Simon Sinek, S-I-N-E-K. It's something having to do with why. And like, why are you doing what you're doing? What do you stand for? Because a lot of people these days, especially millennials, are going to do business with you because of your values and what you basically bring to the party in terms of a mission. That doesn't mean, however, I want to see your mission statement. That's the other thing that people do wrong with their brands. They're like, I want to talk, and they talk all about themselves.
That's what the seminars teach you, right? When you go to these seminars, it's like, you got to begin with your mission statement. Who are you? What do you stand for?
Well, but the mission statement's for you. It's not for everybody else.
But there are websites that post it right on their homepage.
I know.
You see that again and again.
It drives me crazy because nobody cares about you.
No.
Nobody cares about you, and the big companies do this, and coaches and entrepreneurs do this too. You'll go to somebody's website, they'll be like, my modalities are this, and I stand for this, and my mission is this, and I'm like, who cares? I came here to solve my problem.
That's
I
right.
came here to buy a product. I came here to make my life better, and you're telling me about your mission. That's okay to put it on like your about page, like way down at the bottom or something like that, but it shouldn't be the first thing that people see. To me, your mission statement is really for you. That should basically inform everything that you're doing. That's kind of where your brand comes out.
Exactly, yep.
So if your mission is to is for me, my whole thing is all about communication. My big values are communication, creativity, humor, individual self-expression. So everything that I can do that will help my clients or me or even a big company promote those kinds of values, those are the kinds of things that I want to be doing on my website, in my social media, and all of the content that I share. So that's why, I draw cartoons and all those kinds of things. They're not just funny, they're not just jokes. I try to draw things that communicate and
I was going to say that is part of your brand. You have humor as part of,
yeah,
the everyday experience of you.
I'm not being very funny right this second. Again, but the thing is,
you could be.
I could be. I could have worn Groucho Marx glasses.
There you go.
On this live. But no, but I mean, to me, that's super, super important. And the great thing about showing about branding yourself with your real values instead of trying to copy somebody else or trying to look like somebody else is it's like any other relationship. When you first meet somebody and you're on your best behavior and you're trying to prove something or be somebody that you're really not, it works for a while, but then after...
We don't do that.
No, we don't do that.
You and I, we never done that.
We never did that. After a while, well, I know that there was a time when back in the day when I may have done that, not realizing it.
You're from New York.
Not realizing it.
I'm from New York too.
But see, the problem is that with any relationship, after a while, it becomes really hard to keep it up. I mean, even when you want to, it becomes really hard to keep up the pretext of, if it's not authentic, I hate that word, but that's what a lot of people are talking about it these days. If it's not really you, it's going to be, you're going to come across, number one, as somehow phony. Number two, it's exhausting to try to keep up an image that isn't really yours. And it doesn't have much what we call legs, because after a while you run out of ideas when you're trying to be something. But when you really decide what you really stand for, not like what I want to stand for in the marketplace, although you can be aspirational, it needs to have there needs to be some kind of real basis for this, because that way you never run out of ideas.
Okay, let me throw something at you, because you're the coach, you're the trainer, you're the consultant, you have all this knowledge, and from my experience working with so many business owners over the years, one of the big fears is, well, if I brand myself this way, I'm stuck with it.
That is so not true. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons people get so paralyzed about this, and that's why they go around in this vicious circle where I say it's not about the logo, and they think, but I have to have a logo, and then I have to have colors, but then if I pick those colors, then what if I want different colors later? I mean, how many people have you seen? I mean, even Melanie, who was here on one of your other. I mean, I've seen her be show up a few different ways. She has some common values that go across all of them, but for a while she was talking about high performance, and for a while she was talking about money and your money mindset and things like that. And I didn't have any issues with her shifting from one thing to another, because I knew her as someone who is a great mentor for entrepreneurs, and to me.
And there's enough related between the two brands that it wasn't such a big jump where she's not jumping industries and she's still the same thing.
Look,
there's just I guess the word I'm looking for is there's a refinement of her brand.
There's a refinement. There's an evolution.
Evolution, right?
I mean, look, I've mostly talked about copywriting before. Now I'm talking about branding. I'm also talking about other kinds of basically mindset issues to being an entrepreneur. But I'm still talking to the same audience. I'm talking to around the same topics that I know are important to a lot of my people. Now, I struggled with this for a long time, because as an advertising person, I was kind of the keeper of the flame of our brands, and there were certain things that this brand would do and certain things that they wouldn't do, and we were all very, very concerned about that. So if Hanes or IBM showed up the next day wearing, somebody in the IBM campaign was walking around like wearing a party hat and smoking weed, you'd be like, well, wait, this is not the person I know. So you have to maintain a certain level of integrity in your character.
Right.
But if you've decided to now I'm going to be talking about something different, or now I'm going to be I've decided to kind of change the skin I'm in and show up looking a different way. It's even more important to have established a relationship with people where they feel like, okay, this is still the Robert I know. He's just talking about this now, If you change too many different things, if you change your content and your context and all that stuff, then you might have some confusion.
Well, you've got to find a new market at that point because the people you were relating to no longer relate to you, and
Well,
people have done it.
Yeah, a lot of people have done it. Look, it's your business. You get to do whatever you want. That's both the blessing and the curse of being in business for yourself, because no one's there going to be telling you what to do. And the great thing is that now with social media and all kinds of other ways to share your content, especially with these live feeds and things like that, it's so easy to just throw out a ton of content that now relates to your new brand. So you can very easily and more quickly transform your message and your brand by just producing more and being out there more with the new you. So it's really okay to change. I think you don't want to change every 5 minutes, but we
both know people who've tried to do that.
Well, but here's the other thing.
And it's created chaos for them that didn't really create success anyway.
It's true, and it's exhausting for you. But here's the other thing to remember: just to take the pressure off. You should be so lucky that somebody even notices that you've made these changes. I mean, nobody's watching you. I mean, you want them to be watching you, but for the most part, people are paying much more attention to things that matter to them, rather than like, wow, gee, his logo used to be blue and now it's green. I mean, they're really not. They really don't care. So it's really.
But did you see the level of upset with people when Instagram changed their logo?
Yeah, because everybody so related to it and liked it the way it was. I think I don't understand why they did that, because the old one was. It
was old school. It was unique. It was different.
No, I didn't.
It reminded me of the old Polaroid
I didn't like
step.
that. I didn't like that either. And I have a bugaboo about a lot of things. I wouldn't change something that's good and that's working. They for whatever reason they decided they needed a refresh. Uber recently changed their logo from something that is absolutely unintelligible. It doesn't, to me, not only because it's new, but because it doesn't communicate anything. It doesn't say to me Uber at all. I don't know if you've seen what it is. It's just like the car showed up and I didn't even know it was an Uber car.
Yeah, and that's the fear that a lot of people have, is that they're going to put a brand out there or a design or something, and the audience is no longer going to relate to it. So where do you think this happens from in these corporations? That is it just they sit down with a new graphic artist, and the graphic artist says, yeah, the old guy, he didn't know what he was doing, I've got a better idea?
I think that might be it. I think there might be there's some new management who decides that they want it their own way, and they want a clean sweep. I posted something on Facebook, it was like a couple of years ago now probably, where there was a company called You Send It. Do you remember You Send It?
Yeah.
You Send It, which is now called Hightail.
I stopped using them because they changed their name and I hated the
I
name.
mean, I
canceled my account.
couldn't believe.
Literally.
I mean, I do a lot of brand.
Horrible.
I do naming. That's one of the things that I do in my company, naming and rebranding in that sense, like sort of name branding. And I was absolutely just flummoxed by this change. I mean, You Send It at least communicated something. I think the problem that they were having, and I'm just extrapolating from this odd change, but the problem that they were having was, I know that there were issues with the speed of their uploads. If You Send It, for those folks who don't know, and Hightail now is really kind of a file sharing system, not kind of like Dropbox, being able to send big files from one place to another, large attachments. So You Send It, and it had a little kind of paper airplane kind of thing on its logo. I still remember that. I couldn't tell you what the Hightail logo looks like even after a couple of years. And I think what happened was somebody decided, you know what, everyone associates You Send It with old-fashioned file transfers that are really slow compared to a lot of these other things. So we need to come up with a new name that denotes speed and agility and things like that. So I can understand the rationale behind doing that. But to me, the word hightail means to run away fast. Like, disappear fast, run away, let's hightail it out of here.
Yeah, because there's a problem or there's something you should be fearful of.
Because I just robbed a bank and we have to get...
And let's hightail it out of here.
Step on it.
Here comes the
cops. Step on it, Bugsy, let's go.
Exactly.
It just has so many bad connotations.
Yes.
And so whatever it does mean is not good. And and outside of that, it really didn't mean anything. So it had no relationship to their old branding at all.
Yeah, to file transfer, it had no.
So
you couldn't
I thought that
two.
was a huge fail, and God knows how much they paid, probably $50,000 or more to their branding company to make those changes. And I would be glad to take that money or half of it and come up with a much better name and a much better logo for a company like that. So I mean, naming does matter. Naming and logos kind of do matter, because especially once you have an established brand, because you don't want to lose what we call brand equity. You know, they didn't. They had some things they wanted to change, but they threw the baby out with the bathwater, and their new name did not, to me, at all convey the values and the benefits of using their product. So so those kinds of things, like a name, really kind of does matter. That's a bigger deal, and that's something worth spending some time on.
It does.
So.
Okay, we're at the 30-minute mark, which is basically what we like to do. We like to stream live for 30 minutes, and you're going to stay with me for a little longer.
Right.
We're going to continue our conversation for another half hour or so, however long it goes.
And we're going to talk a little bit about, you know, how you do translate this into visual stuff and also into your copy. Because, I mean, we've been talking a lot of theory now, and I'd like to talk a little bit about a little bit more practice. Maybe give some examples.
That. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But before we leave you, I know you have a special gift you want to share with people.
I have a special gift I want to share with people.
Didn't you want to give people a nice gift? Do you have an ebook?
I actually.
Or did I misunderstand
you?
you?
No. I do want to give people a nice gift,
okay.
and I would like everyone to go to, let's see.
Can they get it from LisaRothstein.com?
They can, but wait a second. Should we give them the ideal client thing, or should we give them the a thing that helps them write their sales copy? What do you think?
I like the ideal client one because it's new and it's fresh and it's something nobody else has been doing.
Okay, well then I think what you want to do is go to bit.ly. I just created this link this morning. bit.ly bit.ly/draw your client. If you go to bit.ly/draw your client, you'll get a download of a kind of a do-it-yourself how to draw a cartoon of your ideal clients. You'll be able to communicate with them better. I think I also linked to the video that you and I did. I'm not sure, but there was a video that you guys that we did together about that. But I'm not sure, but we may not have that on there. But you definitely get the download of the PDF that you can then use to trace your own ideal client on there. And I'd also love to invite you to join me in my Facebook group, if that's okay. If you go to creativemoneymakers.com, you will be given an invitation to join my Creative Moneymakers Facebook group, where we talk about all these kinds of things, branding and copy, and all kinds of things, being creative in business.
So that's Creative Money Makers with an S.
Yes.
CreativeMoneymakers.com.
Right.
And that'll lead you right into the Facebook group?
Right into the Facebook group, yep.
Awesome. I'm a member of the group.
Yes.
She posts great stuff.
Thank you.
I want to thank you for being with us today. This is a lot of fun. And if you want to watch the rest of the interview, the marketingnetwork.tv is where you want to go. It's for our members. You can sign up there, be a member. It's really, really affordable, just $97 for the entire year. And you get access to the full interviews that we've been doing. We're doing quite a few of them. Got a lot of great people coming up. I was talking to Debbie Lynn Grace this morning. She's going to be coming 2 weeks from now to do an interview. Adam Urbanski's coming on Friday.
Adam Urbanski, my favorite. Yeah.
Full of knowledge, full of information.
Yeah.
He and I are going to have a great
and an adorable
chat here.
accent.
Absolutely. So yeah, the list is just growing. More and more people are coming to the studio here in Carlsbad and having a great time. So if you want to see those interviews, go to the marketingnetwork.tv, look for the subscribe button at the top right, and click on that, and you'll be able to join and see all the interviews. Our interview will be posted. It'll take me about 3-4 days to get it up there.
Okay.
So maybe by Monday it'll be available in full. But we gotta record it first, so we're gonna go do that. And we want to thank you both for being. Thank you all for being here. Both. There's only 2 people watching.
How do you know?
I don't know. My iPad has been frozen the whole time, so who knows?
We have no idea how many people.
Yeah, it's not working right now, but it probably needs to be rebooted. So thank you for joining us.
Yes.
And thank you for joining us. And we're gonna keep our conversation going, and we'll get back to you real soon. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.